Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Everybody, please relax. We're going to be here for a little bit. Everybody take a seat if you have a seat. It is great to see you. Can everybody please give Jody a big round of applause for the introduction? Everybody is a special guest, but we've got a few that I just want to mention. First of all, obviously, you've got one of the finest governors in the country, and Ted Strickland. Please give him a round of applause. My former colleague when he was in the Senate, nobody fights harder for working people than Sherrod Brown. Give him a big round of applause. You've got a dynamo pair of members of the House of Representatives who are so committed to their districts and committed to this state. Betty Sutton and Marcy Kaptur. I have been having just a wonderful time here in town, and your mayor has just been a really nice person. He and I shared a burger over at Smitty's. Give Bill Grace a big round of applause. And somebody who I'm hugely impressed with, because I'm just so impressed with this institution, and his leadership obviously has been critical to it. Dr. Ray Church, your school president here at Lorain County Community College. Well, listen, it is great to be here in Elyria. Thank you so much for the great hospitality, the wonderful reception. Look, it's just nice being out of Washington. Let me say. I mean, there are some nice people in Washington, but it can drive you crazy. Am I wrong, Sharon? For 2 years, I had the privilege of traveling across this country, and I had a chance to talk to people like you and go to diners and sit in barber shops and hear directly about the challenges that all of you are facing in your lives and the opportunities that you're taking advantage of and all the things that we face together as a nation. And the single hardest thing, people ask me this all the time, the single hardest thing about being president is that it's harder for me to do that nowadays. It's harder to get out of the bubble. I mean, don't get me wrong, the White House is a wonderful place to work. You live above the store, which means I've got a very short commute. I see my daughters before they go to school, and I see them at night for dinner, even if I have to go back down to the office, and that makes everything so much better. But the truth is this job's a little confining, and that is frustrating. I can't just go to the barber shop or sit in a diner. I can't always visit people directly. This is part of the reason why I've taken to the practice of reading 10 letters out of the 40,000 that I get every night, just so that I can stay in touch and hear from you. But nothing beats a day where I can make an escape. I break out. And so I appreciate the chance to come here and spend a day. Before I came here, I visited the EMC Precision Machining Plant. I saw the great clean energy job training program here at Lorain County Community College. And I'm obviously thrilled to be able to spend some time with you. I love you back. Thank you. Now, look, let's be honest. These are difficult and unsettling times. There are difficult times here in Elyria. They're tough in Ohio. They're tough all across the country. I walked into office a year ago in the middle of a raging economic storm that was wreaking devastation on your town and communities everywhere. And we had to take some very difficult steps to deal with that mess, to stave off an even greater economic catastrophe. We had to stabilize the financial system, which, given the role of the big banks in creating this mess, was a pretty tough pill to swallow. I knew it would be unpopular, and rightly so. But I also knew that we had to do it because if they went down, your local banks would have gone down, and if the financial system went down, it would have taken the entire economy and millions more families and businesses with it. We would have been looking at a second Great Depression. So in my first months in office, we also had to save two of the big three automakers from a liquidation bankruptcy, complete collapse. Some people weren't happy about that either. I understand that. They felt like, if you're in a business, you make a bad decision, you ought to reap the consequences, just like any business would. Problem was, if we let GM and Chrysler simply go under, hundreds of thousands of Americans would have been hurt. Not just at those companies themselves, but at auto suppliers and other companies and dealers here in Michigan, or here in Ohio, up in Michigan, all across this country. So we said, if you're willing to take some tough and painful steps to make yourself more competitive, we're willing to invest in your future. And earlier this week, we heard that the auto industry planned to make almost 3 million cars and trucks here in North America in the next 3 months, which is up 69% from the first 3 months of last year. We also passed a Recovery Act to pull our economy back from the brink. Now, there's been a lot of misunderstanding about this Recovery Act. Sheridan, Marcy, and Betty and I were talking about this on the way over here. If you ask the average person, what was the Recovery Act, the stimulus package, they'd say the bank bailout. So let me just be clear here. The Recovery Act was cutting taxes for 95% of working families. 15 different tax cuts for working families, 7 different tax cuts for small businesses so they can start up and grow and hire. The Recovery Act was extending and increasing unemployment insurance and making COBRA available at a cheaper rate for people who had lost their jobs so they could keep their health care. We gave aid directly to states to help them through tough times. Ted can testify the help that it provided to the Ohio budget so we wouldn't have to lay off teachers and firefighters and police officers all across this state. And we made the largest investment in infrastructure since the creation of the interstate highway system, putting Americans to work rebuilding our roads, bridges, waterways, doing the work that America needs to be done. Now today, because we took those actions, the worst of this economic storm has passed. But families like yours and communities like this one are still reeling from the devastation that left in its wake. At one of the companies at EMC where I went today, wonderful company, passed on through generations. They have hung on with their precision manufacturing, high value added. They can do things that can't be shipped off to China because they're so attuned to their customers' needs. But they had 77 employees, now they got 44. That they want to start hiring back, but it's going to take a little time. The good news is they're starting to see orders pick up just a little bit. But it's tough. Folks have seen jobs you thought would last forever disappear. You've seen plants close and businesses shut down. I've heard about how the city government here is starting to cut into bone, not just fat. You can't get to work or go buy groceries like you used to because of cuts in the county transit system. And this all comes after one of the toughest decades our middle class has faced in generations. I mean, think about what's happened over the last 10 years. even before the crisis hit. This is a decade where some folks made tons of money. But so many others were just pedaling faster and faster, but they were stuck in the same place, sometimes slipping behind. The average wage, the average income over the last decade actually flatlined. In some cases, went down. That was before the crisis. So for many of you, even as you found your paychecks shrinking, even as after the crisis you found the value of your biggest asset, your home, falling, the cost of everything else has gone up. Cost of groceries, cost of sending your kids to college, cost of retirement. And you've also faced the breakneck, unrelenting climb of costs for your health care needs. Now, here's the message I want you to take away. And we're going to have a lot of time for questions, but I want to make this absolutely clear. I did not run for president to turn away from these challenges. I didn't run to kick these challenges down the road. I ran for president to confront them once and for all. I ran for this office to rebuild our economy so it works not just for the fortunate few, but for everybody who's willing to work hard in this country. To create good jobs that can support a family, to get wages growing and incomes rising, to improve the quality of America's schools and lift up great community colleges like this one so that people are constantly learning, constantly retraining for the jobs of the 21st century, to make higher education affordable for the children of working families, and yes, to deal with the problem of runaway health insurance costs that are breaking family budgets and breaking business budgets and breaking our national budget. Now, since this has been in the news a little bit this week, let me say a little something about health care. I had no illusions when I took this on that this was going to be hard. 7 presidents had tried it. 7 Congresses had tried it. And all of them had failed. And I had a whole bunch of political advisors telling me, this may not be the smartest thing to do. You've got a lot on your plate. Biggest economic crisis since the Great Depression, 2 wars. You may not get a lot of cooperation. You're going to have a lot of pushback from the insurance companies and the drug companies. It's complicated. Don't do it. Now, let me tell you why I did it. I knew that insurance premiums had more than doubled in the past decade. I knew that out-of-pocket expenses had skyrocketed. I knew that millions more people had lost their insurance, and I knew that because of the economic crisis, that was only going to get worse. When you lose 7 million jobs, like we lost over the last 2 years, what do you think happens to those folks' health insurance? What happens when their COBRA runs out? I took this up because I wanted to ease the burdens on all the families and small businesses that can't afford to pay outrageous rates, and I wanted to protect mothers and fathers and children by being targeted by some of the worst practices of the insurance industry that I had heard time and time again as I traveled through this country. Now, let me dispel this notion that somehow we were focused on that and so as a consequence not focused on the economy. First of all I think about is how we're going to create jobs in this area. All I think about is how do we get banks lending again. I've been doing that the entire year. So have folks like Sherrod and Marcy and Betty. But what I also know is that healthcare is part of the drag on our economy. It's part of the eroding security that middle-class families feel. So Here's the good news. We've gotten pretty far down the road. But I've got to admit, we had a little bit of a buzzsaw this week. Now, I also know that part of the reason is that this process was so long and so drawn out. This is just what happens in Congress. I mean, it's just an ugly process. You're running headlong into special interests and armies of lobbyists and partisan politics that's aimed at exploiting fears instead of getting things done. And then you've got ads that are scaring the bejesus out of everybody. And the longer it takes, the uglier it looks. So I understand why people would say, boy, I'm not so sure about this, even though they know that what they got isn't working. And I understand that why after the Massachusetts election, people in Washington were all in a tizzy, trying to figure out what this means for health reform, Republicans and Democrats. What does it mean for Obama? You know, is he weakened? How's he going to survive this? That's what they do. But I want you to understand, this is not about me. This is not about me. This is about you. This is not about me, this is about you. I didn't take this up to boost my poll numbers. You know, the way to boost your poll numbers is not do anything. That's how you do it. You don't offend anybody. I'd have real high poll numbers. All of Washington would be saying, what a genius. I didn't take this on to score political points. I know there's some folks who think, you know, if Obama loses, we win. But you know what? I think that I win when you win. That's how I think about it. So if I was trying to take the path of least resistance, I would have done something a lot easier. But I'm trying to solve the problems that folks here in Ohio and across this country face every day. And I'm not going to walk away just because it's hard. We are going to keep on working to get this done. With Democrats, I hope with Republicans, anybody who's willing to step up. Because I'm not going to watch more people get crushed by costs or denied care they need by insurance company bureaucrats. I'm not going to have the insurance companies click their heels and watch their stocks skyrocket because, once again, there's no control on what they do. So long as I have some breath in me, so long as I have the privilege of serving as your president, I will not stop fighting for you. I will take my lumps, but I won't stop fighting to bring back jobs here. I won't stop fighting for an economy where hard work is rewarded. I won't stop fighting to make sure there's accountability in our financial system. I'm not going to stop fighting until we have jobs for everybody. That's why I'm calling on Congress to pass a jobs bill, to put more Americans to work, building off our Recovery Act, put more Americans back to work, rebuilding roads and railways, provide tax breaks to small businesses for hiring people, offer families incentives to make their homes more energy efficient, saving them money while creating jobs. That's why we enacted initiatives that are beginning to give rise to a clean energy economy. That's part of what's going on at this community college. If we hadn't done anything with the Recovery Act, talk to the people who are building wind turbines and solar panels. They would have told you their industry was about to collapse because credit had completely frozen. And now you're seeing all across Ohio, this state has received more funds than just about anybody in order to build on that clean energy economy, new cutting-edge wind turbines and batteries that are going to be going into energy-efficient cars. Almost $25 million of our investment went to a plant right here in Elyria that's helping produce the car batteries of the future. That's what we're going to keep on doing for the rest of 2010 and 2011 and 2012 until we've got this country working again. So long as I'm president, I'll never stop fighting for policies that will help restore home values, to redeem the investment that folks have made. We've seen some of those values return in some places, in some pockets, but it's still tough out there. We're going to have to do more this year to make sure that banks are responsive to folks who are working hard, have been paying their mortgage, but have found themselves in a tough situation. I'm not going to stop fighting to give our kids the best education possible, to take the tens of billions of dollars we pay banks to act as middlemen on student loans and invest that money in students who actually need it. We don't need the mid-mill. Cut them out. I won't stop fighting to give every American a fair shake. That's why the very first bill I signed into law was the Lilly Ledbetter Act to uphold the principle of equal pay for equal work for men and women alike, especially when families need 2 paychecks to survive. So long as I'm president, I won't stop fighting to protect you from the kinds of deceptive practices we've seen from some in the financial sector. That's why I signed a credit card bill of rights into law to protect you from surprise charges and retroactive rate hikes and other unfair rules. That's why I'm fighting for a tough consumer financial protection agency to protect you against those hidden overdraft fees that can make a single ATM withdrawal cost $30. Say, that happened to you, didn't it? I won't stop fighting to open up government. Now, this is hard to do because we don't control every branch. But I can tell you, we have put in place the toughest ethics laws and toughest transparency rules of any administration in history. In history. By the way, this is the first administration since the founding of the country where all of you can find out who visits the White House. First time in history. And that's just one example of how we're trying to constantly open up the process. And so long as I'm president, I won't stop fighting to cut waste and abuse in Washington, to eliminate what we don't need to pay for what we do, to rein in exploding deficits that we've been accumulating not just last year, but for the last 10. Now, and I'm going to keep on fighting for real, meaningful health insurance reform. We expanded the Children's Health Insurance Program to include 4 million kids. We already did that. But we are also going to fight to hold the insurance industry accountable, to bring more stability and security to folks who are in our healthcare system. And yes, I want to make sure that people who don't have healthcare right now can get some. It's shameful that we don't do that. Now, these are some of the fights we've already had, and I can promise you there will be more fights ahead. I'm not going to win every round. But we're having a fight right now because I want to charge Wall Street a modest fee to repay taxpayers in full for saving their skins in a time of need. We want our money back. We want our money back. And we're going to get your money back every dime. Each and every dime. But it's going to be a fight. You watch. I guarantee you, when we start on financial regulatory reform, trying to change the rules to prevent what has caused so much heartache all across the country, there are people who are going to say, why is he meddling in government? Why is he meddling in the financial industry? It's another example of Obama being big government. No, I just want to have some rules in place so that when these guys make dumb decisions, you don't end up having to foot the bill. That's pretty straightforward. I don't mind having that fight. You know, I said at the beginning how much it means to me to be able to travel this country and how much it means for me to be here. And that is true now more than ever. Because there's no doubt that it's easy to get a pretty warped view of things in Washington. But then you start talking to the guys working on those machines, creating products all across the country. You go into the diner and you meet folks who are raising their kids and working hard and trying to keep things together. And I'm reminded of the strength and the resilience and the perseverance of the American people. I'm reminded of the fundamental character of the Americans that I'm so privileged to serve. It's that character that has borne our nation through the roughest of seas, a lot rougher than the ones we're going through right now. That's the character that will carry us through this storm to better days ahead. I am confident of that because of you. And I'm very grateful for all of you taking the time to be here today. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.